Hester stood at the highest tower of Silvershade Veil, her alabaster castle that loomed over the valley like a sentinel made of bone. The wind howled through the craggy peaks of Necrothral, the cursed precipice upon which the castle sat. Her green-tinted skin shimmered under the moonlight, her long, wild mane of curly red hair rippling like snakes in the wind. But tonight, something looked different about her. It was the fury that radiated from her essence, a rage so palpable that the mountain beneath her seemed to tremble. Her twin sister, Bethia, the infamous conjurer known for her malevolent spells, had been taken. The villagers, emboldened by the fear and hatred of Bethia's power, had come for her in the dead of night. They were tired of her cruelty, tired of the noxious potions she brewed, the curses she cast on those who crossed her. But what they did to Bethia was a betrayal beyond words. They had studied her patterns and waited for the day she would fill her phials at a cold mountain stream, a place where the water ran clear and pure, a deceptive calm. There, they ambushed her. It was not a fair fight. They threw a net over her and pulled it tight, binding her hands and feet. Bethia had twisted and screamed and struggled mightily, but it was no use. She was overwhelmed. They shoved her head into the mud at the bottom of the stream, drowning her slowly, cruelly, until the life was gone from her. Fearful that she might rise again, they tied heavy rocks to the net and cast her into the deepest pool beneath the waterfall. Hester could hear it in the whispering winds, her sister's screams, her final breaths, the terrible silence that followed. "Bethia is gone," the winds whispered, as if nature itself had turned its back on her. It wasn't grief that consumed Hester. It was fury, a blistering rage that churned her insides. Bethia had always been volatile, petulant, wicked beyond measure, but she was still her twin. They were bound in blood, in magic, in the deep, dark veins of a wicked world that pulsed with lethal energy. Hester had loved and cherished her sister Bethia, and now they had taken her. For days, Hester stood alone in her castle, in eerie silence, her mind seething with the knowledge that her sister had been murdered. She could not forgive it. She would not forgive it. And so, she began her work. The castle was quiet at night, except for the scratch of her quill on parchment, the shuffling of ancient tomes as Hester delved deeper into the deadliest of dark knowledge. She was no stranger to conjuring treacherous spells, but this was something else. The spell would be a brutal masterpiece. It would be an act of vengeance that would turn the villagers' bones to ash. Bethia's writings were her guide, her sister's books of conjuration, full of malign spells and curses. They scattered across the ancient oak table in front of Hester. She pored over them, eyes gleaming with an intensity that bordered on madness. Each incantation, each diagram, each sigil etched in ink was a step closer to her malicious intent. It took weeks of preparation, weeks of bending time itself to her will, hours spent communing with the ancient spirits that lurked in the darkest corners of the world. And then, When the spell was ready, when the air crackled with incendiary energy, Hester unleashed it. The winds shrieked and howled. The night clouds rippled and ominously shifted into a deep and murky sanguine hue. The earth groaned beneath the weight of her power. Silvershade Veil began to tremble, its alabaster walls glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. The village below, once bright and bustling, now shuddered as a thick, suffocating miasma began to swirl around the base of Necrothral. It crept down the hills, down the cliffs, winding through the trees and across the village like a living serpent. The air grew heavy, thick with the stench of decay, as though the very land itself had begun to rot. Hester could feel it. The miasma was alive, fed by her rage and her grief, creeping into the bones of the village. It seeped into the homes, twisting the air, turning food sour, water fetid. It was a curse, a slow and painful death, but it would not come all at once. No, this was only the beginning. The villagers awoke in horror. The skies were darkened by gloom. The sun blotted out, and the air itself seemed to burn inside their lungs. Children cried in their beds, unable to breathe, the very air poisoning them. The men who had killed Bethia were the first to fall, stumbling into the streets, gasping for breath, their skin turning ashen as the miasma sapped their strength. But their miasma did not stop with the men. It reached deep into the hearts of the villagers, into their very souls, writhing and twisting like demonic parasites. Fear began to spread. No one knew where it came from. No one understood what was happening, but they felt it. The sickness spread quickly, gnawing at their insides. Hester stood high in her tower, looking down on the valley below, her green eyes glowing red with fury. The spell was working. There would be no mercy for the villagers who had dared to take her beloved Bethia from her. Hester would not rest until every last one of them had paid the price for their cruelty. As the village descended into madness and death, with its people choking on the thick air and clawing at their chests, Hester whispered a single word in the dead of night. Bethia. Hester instantly felt a cold, familiar presence beside her. And with a shudder, she realized that her sister's magic had never truly died. It had only waited for her to awaken it.